Hello, everyone. Let's get started. We've got a nice webinar coming up for you today, and the title, Streamlining the Creation of Service Bulletins at Toyota Motor Europe. Let's take a quick look at the agenda before we go ahead, so as you know what's coming up when. It's a short webinar. And for today, we've got 10 minutes, an introduction as to why we're having this webinar. Then 10 minutes, Gary Howe will provide a case study on the challenges at TME and how they overcame them and what the benefits of this system are. And then there's a 15-minute demo of the tools and the workflow in use. And then you get all the rest of the time, usually about 10 minutes, to ask questions and have answers from the team here at Companize. But also we've got the Toyota Motor Europe representatives online, and they should be able to answer questions. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you look to your top right, you'll see there's a chat panel. You can ask your questions there, make comments. Feel free to let us know where you're from today, where you're joining us from. If you do have any questions, put a question mark on it, and our moderators will make sure that they get asked at the end. They'll be marking them as questions, and we'll be able to easily take a look at those and answer them. If we can't answer any, we'll be sure to send you an email. So if you've registered with your work email address, you get an email from us as soon as we can. So let's first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Companize. Well, this year, Companize turns 15, and for 15 years, we've been providing a component content management system. It's an end-to-end solution that allows all stakeholders in the technical documentation lifecycle to intervene at the right time and with the right tools. Component content management system is an approach to managing content as individual reusable components rather than as an entire document or as entire pages. This now allows organizations to efficiently create, manage, and publish content across multiple channels and in different multiple formats. One of the fundamental differentiators of our CCMS from others is that it is based on a proven open source content management system, Alfresco, used in thousands of implementations by, for example, NASA, Cisco, and the US Navy even uses it. This solution is based on an open architecture, and we provide a set of APIs that allow us to fetch information where it sits in order to enrich the technical content, but also to be able to push technical documentation to where it's expected to be. In practical terms, this means that our CCMS is probably one of the best to be able to integrate within a complex environment, as is often the case in manufacturing. So what are the industries using Companize, I hear you ask? Well, our customers come from different industries, including transportation, medical devices, high tech, but most of them are manufacturers. So if you take a look at of all the manufacturers on there, we're working with one of our famous customers, Toyota Motor Europe. Of our customers, we find that most of them are actually also in regulated industries, so medical devices, pharma, transportation, finance. All of those are like regulated industries, and as such requires such high levels of control and traceability that it's best to use a solution such as Companize to manage your content. So what are the challenges in technical documentation, especially in a manufacturing setting? Of course, when we talk about manufacturing, we're talking about very different industries. I mean, automotive is different from aircraft, is different from medical devices. But the challenges, while they might be varied, have many similarities. So the requirements for creating a mammograph are different from those for creating a car. Some of those similarities are like, complexity of the products. Complex products are typically composed of numerous subsystems and components, each with their own technical specifications and requirements. This complexity can make it difficult to ensure that all the relevant information is accurately captured and presented in a way that is easily understandable to the end user. So managing versions and configurations of documentations can be very challenging with complex products. Regulations is always changing regulations. Manufacturers of complex products must comply with a range of regulations and standards, sometimes from different countries and different jurisdictions. These are subjects to change, and keeping up with those changes and ensuring that your technical documentation is updated accordingly can be a significant challenge. Maintenance and updates. Now, technical documentation must be regularly updated to reflect changes in the product, such as new features or any modifications that you might be making. And this can be challenging. This can be a challenging and time-consuming process, especially for products that have a very long life cycle. I mean, a car is it's got a life cycle of 30 odd years. It'd be hard to keep maintaining that without some sort of system helping you with that. Multilingual documentation as well. Many complex products are marketed and sold in multiple countries, and there might be requirements for technical documentation to be translated into those multiple languages. Again, a time-consuming and sometimes expensive process. It's important to ensure that translations remain accurate and are consistent. In addition, many components, no pun intended, are supplied by third-party entities. Think about it. As a motor car manufacturer, you're not creating every single bit that goes into it. You subcontract some parts of the building to other companies. So data, information, and requirements from those subcontractors must also be accounted for, as you, as the main manufacturer, are responsible for tracing all system components. So these points become even more crucial in maintaining the fiability of your end product. So how can Companize help address these issues? I've listed 6 ways here. You'll have a demonstration of a use case of how service bulletins are created and maintained at TME. But in a few words, one of the key benefits of our solution is its ability to scale content more efficiently than others. With modular, reusable, and easily translatable content components, you can create content that can be dynamically modified to suit different audiences, different regions, and more. By setting profiles and variables, you can ensure that your content is consistent across all channels while maintaining flexibility. Another benefit of RCCMS is its ability to quickly create high-quality documents. You will see during the demo that with automations to generate new content from forms, templates, and existing components and variables, pulling data from third-party systems, you're able to jumpstart document creation while maintaining a consistent set of standards and requirements. A powerful workflow engine is also a crucial feature of a good CCMS solution. With our unique workflow engine, you can streamline and secure the creation of content, even the most complex business processes. You can define conditions, schedule jobs, or automate tasks flexibly inside and outside of the CCMS, with the safety of the strong guardrails to ensure that you stay in control of each step. Going on with those 6 ways Companize can help. Companize manages all content formats. So as compared to other CCMS solutions that are just storing your XML-based documents, Companize is able to also apply the same versioning, metadata, taxonomy, search, and collaboration features to such documents as videos, PDF, your CAD files, Office documents. So your solution can be spread across multiple departments, allowing, like, for example, your legal department to store certain legal documents, your marketing department to store data sheets and all of that in their native format within the CCMS, within Companize. Our web-based platform is intuitive and easy to use. There's no installation or lengthy training period required. You can onboard your team very smoothly and easily with very little training required. In fact, for many of our clients, such as Toyota, most of their authors are first and foremost engineers. They have no formal training in technical writing, and they're still able to use our system very easily. And finally, our CCMS solution offers open APIs and has an open architecture. It means it's very easy for it to be integrated within systems that are already in use within your organization. And so let's get started with one of our presentations for today. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth, as I say. Gary Howe, a technical manager at Toyota Motor Europe, prepared an explanation of the challenges and benefits that TME faced with their service bulletins and how they resolved them. So here's what he has to say. Come on board, Gary.
Yep. Thanks very much, Deepo. First of all, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Gary Howe. I work for Toyota Motor Europe in the Information Technology Department. I'm a technical manager and I have responsibility for logistics and quality applications. And I've got over 25 years experience of working in the IT industry, delivering IT projects for Toyota. So I'm going to explain about our project, which is about the bulletin system. So I'm focusing on one particular type of bulletin that we have, which is called a technical instruction, but we have in total 5 different types of bulletin. So first of all, I will explain a little bit about Toyota and the European operation. Then I will go in and explain about the field action processes that we use in Toyota and some of the issues around those. Thirdly, I will explain about the TI bulletin process and as an example project of our bulletin system and show the old and the new process. Fourth, I will give a brief summary of the solution outline that we came up with. And then finally, I will explain the benefits. So first of all, about Toyota, probably doesn't need any explanation, but it's a global company with its global headquarters in Japan, Toyota Motor Corporation, also known as TMC. And then we have 5 regional companies, regional headquarters, one of which is Toyota Motor Europe, also known as TME, based in Belgium. Toyota around the world, we sell in 170 countries and regions, and the total vehicles sold around the world in calendar year 22 was 10.5 million units. In Europe, we started selling cars in 1963, and we have sold over 1 million vehicles in calendar year 22, which represents a record market share of 7.3%. A bit more detail about the European operation. So we have 8 manufacturing companies in 6 countries, making a combination of vehicles and units. 8 out of the 10 vehicles that are sold in Europe are manufactured in Europe. More interesting for today's presentation, we have a number of national marketing and sales companies around Europe. In total, there are 28, and we sell vehicles in 53 countries. And we have more than 2,500 dealer outlets, and these dealer outlets are controlled by the NMSEs. So then to jump into our project, so the process we're going to explain is around the field action process and the use of a technical instruction. So what's a field action? It's a process that's triggered in order to apply a campaign operation on a set of vehicles in the field, for example, a kind of vehicle maintenance. The important document that's used in this process is called a technical instruction, and it contains all the details of the field action, including the part numbers, the tools, the inspections that are required in order for dealer to carry out the operation. I'm showing here on the slide the overall process. So we trigger the activity in terms of the field action with communication between TMC and TME to review and follow up on the preparation of the campaign. Then the technical instruction is shared to the NMSE in English, and the NMSE then has the responsibility to translate the document into their own local language and needs, and also to share this information with their local network. And then it's the dealer's responsibility to carry out the inspection and the maintenance of the vehicles as required. The issues with this process were that we didn't have a standard way of translating or communicating this TI information. And it was done NMSC by NMSC and was not standardized across Europe. In a consequence, then we had an impact on the quality and the cost of the operation, and also delaying the start of the implementation of the campaign in the market. So a bit more detail on the technical instruction bulletin project. So the previous process we show at the top here, that the TMC and TME are controlling just the starting process, which is to prepare the initial TI document in English. It's shared with the NMSCs, and then the NMSCs take control of the process. They translate the document using their own systems and standards, and then they communicate and publish it to their dealer network by whatever means they have, either via the intranet or via emails. The dealers are then storing this information, and it can be stored in hard copy or on digital basis. The whole process takes around 30 days to complete. In the new process, TME and TMC are working together and control the whole process. So information is loaded at the start from TMC into our bulletin system. We directly publish the version in English, and we reroute the content into our translation tools. There is some review and authoring in the process to actually confirm the content. And then finally, the information is published in our front-end dealer system, which is accessed by all the dealers. Following this process, we can standardize the content of the TI in a standard way. We can reduce the cost of the translation by using standard tools. We can reduce the overall lead time to launch the campaign. And we can make sure that we properly manage the versions so that we can ensure that we're always working from the correct version. So a bit more detail on the solution outline. So we're reusing our existing technical documentation systems for the authoring, translation, review and publication of our technical instructions. Information is provided as an input from TMC via an XML file. And then we pass this process through a series of steps in order to generate the output to the dealers in our TechDoc front-end system, which can be accessed by all the authorized repairers. The focus today is on the first step of this process, where we use the Componize tool to generate the bulletin system, and this is where TME reviews and updates documentation to make sure it's suitable for publication. Following this process, we can make sure that we ensure we've got a quality and standardization of all the content of the TI across Europe. And by doing this, we can ensure the NMSCs and their network receive the information of the respective TI in a language that they can understand to carry out the operations as efficiently as possible. Finally, I've just got some explanation of the benefits of this TI process. So first of all, by having the TI process following this bulletin system, we standardize all the content, and we automate this process to generate the different languages. And this is a big reduction in workload for our NMSCs. We can save 11,000 hours per year. We can reduce the lead time, so our lead time to launch is reduced from 30 days to 15 days, so it's a 15-day reduction in the lead time to prepare the launch for the mass market. And finally, by handling these publications and revisions in a centralized way, we can reduce the workload for the NMSCs to actually distribute and manage the versions, and that can save us 2,000 hours per year as well. And then just finally to say, this is just the TI process is just one of the examples of the bulletin solution. We have 5 types that we're using this process now. So the benefits are multiplied for each type of additional items that we can add. and we are currently expanding the solution to cover some new information types as we speak. So the expansion is continuing. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Gary. That was that was an excellent overview, because then it allows the audience to better follow the demo that's going to come up. Frank will be demoing what this looks like within the solution.
Yeah.
If anyone's got any questions, please put them in the chat window. Our moderators will mark them up for questioning. And Gary, you'll be around at the end to help answer some of those questions, won't you?
Sure, I'll be there.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gary, and speak soon. Okay, so that was Gary Howe. Thanks a lot, Gary. And we're gonna continue now with a demo. It was very interesting to see that methodical way in which TME was able to implement changes that allows them to become more efficient in this process. The before and after slides were particularly interesting for the managers out there. You've got the ROI figures that you can use to make the case for starting to implement a similar solution in your organization. As mentioned, Gary and other members will be available at the end. So please make sure you put your questions into the question box. Now let's go on to the demo. Frank Shipley is CTO of Companize. As CTO, Frank is very involved in these sorts of processes and improvements, showing how Companize CCMS is being used by our customers. So come up on stage, Frank. There we go. And I'll leave it to you. I'll let you do your demo. I'll come off stage.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Deepo. Okay, yeah, well, thank you everybody for joining. Deepo gave you an introduction, and I'm just going to dive straight into the demo. So let me share my screen. Is that okay, Deepo? Can everybody see that, in theory? Maybe you went off stage. Okay, so I assume you can see my screen. Okay, so I'm showing you the dashboard of the bulletin system that Gary spoke about. So this is the sort of homepage that the users have. On the left-hand side, we've got a set of links that give them access to the different actions that they can perform on the different bulletin types. So at the moment, we've got 5 different bulletin types in the system. Gary spoke about the campaign technical instructions. So the third one here. I'm going to demo the campaign bulletin and the technical service bulletin. So for a field action, as Gary said earlier, in fact, you start a field action with a campaign bulletin, which announces a new campaign. And then afterwards, the dealers, they receive the technical instruction, which actually describes in more detail what actions need to be formed on the vehicles. Okay, so I'm going to start with the campaign bulletin. So we'll create a new one. So there is a reference number that the users have to enter by hand. So as a subject, let's just say that this campaign is all about engine ECU reprogramming. So let's say that they need to reprogram or reinstall some software in the car. So one thing that's slightly different about campaigns is that they can apply to either Toyota vehicles, Lexus vehicles, or both. Okay, so it's I'm going to choose the case where we're doing a campaign for both Toyota and Lexus. Okay, so this is service category type engine. Okay, then the author has a pick list where he needs to indicate which models and model codes are applicable. So the information that you can see on the screen here is coming from a centralized data hub. So we synchronize this data automatically with the data hub. It's not stored locally. And so that's just an example of the integration that we've done around the bulletin system, with the other systems that are at Toyota and Toyota Motor Europe. The number of, Toyota Motor Europe, they're responsible for quite a few countries across Europe. Some of these instructions might apply to sort of one of those specific markets. Otherwise, they might apply to all markets. Which might often be the case, in which case the bulletins need to be translated into many different languages. I'll just leave all markets. Let's say that this is a customer satisfaction campaign. So that basically means that this is probably not a mandatory action, but they've decided to do it for customer satisfaction. I can set an expiry date on the campaign. So this campaign is valid until the end of May. Okay, then I'm going to start the workflow or the process. Okay, so when I start one of these processes, you'll have noticed that on the first screen, I entered some basic metadata. So we take that metadata and we generate a bulletin. Okay, that bulletin is generated from a template, and then the metadata is actually injected to create the bulletin. So on my dashboard now, I've got a list of the bulletins that are currently sort of assigned to me. If I click here, I get an overview of the workflow or the process. Okay, so we can actually visualize that in the form of a diagram. So if I click here, you'll see a diagram of this process. So this is quite a simple process, actually. It's just in 3 main steps. We've got an author step where the author will author the bulletin. Then we've got a review step, and then finally an approval step. There is a parallel step here where the author can upload any software, call those CAL files. So if any reprogramming is required, then the author uploads the new software here. When he does upload software, I'm not actually going to show you that step, but when he does upload software, then in real time, we actually communicate with another centralized system at Toyota to check that the actual IDs that are used for those CAL files are actually already, well, they're valid and they're already identified in the CAL files database. And then we actually upload those files to the actual central database, and then they'll be then accessible in the dealer network. Okay, so coming back to our bulletin, and let's have a look what it looks like. So I click here to actually open it in the authoring tool. Okay, so you can see this has been, it's taken the subject that I entered earlier. The document is generated from a template. The template is also managed by the users, okay, so that they can update that without any other assistance. Everything in blue here is sort of variables in a way, or text that's been generated, inserted by the system automatically. We've got this sort of placeholder here, which is where the actual brand name will go. So because I selected both brands, then I've got both Toyota and Lexus. You'll see in a few minutes when I actually publish the bulletin, we will get 2 copies. Okay, so out of a single source file, we'll generate 2 bulletins that will be sent out to the dealer network. Okay, one for Toyota and one for Lexus. You can add guidelines as well into these templates to give instructions to the users as to what they should enter. So here I'm just going to add something briefly, such as the engine, the ECU will be reprogrammed. Obviously, in a real scenario, they'd probably enter more text than that, but there's quite a lot in the template actually. So the actual work that's required by the author is quite, well, you know, is reduced. So we have a table here that's been that's been generated with the model codes that are actually taken from the first page. If I'd have selected them earlier, then it would have generated the model codes for me. Okay, and then I would have had them here. I'll show you that in the next bulletin. Then you'll see an example where we inject the model codes automatically. Okay, but here obviously I can just enter model codes or whatever. ABC 1, 2, 3 VNF. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, and then the users can actually complete those tables with the vehicle codes. We've got one table here for Toyota vehicles, and we've got one table here for Lexus vehicles. I don't know the actual codes, but so you can see that when you'll see in a second, when we generate the bulletin types, we'll get a separate table for the Toyota models and one for the Lexus models. And then at the bottom here, because I selected customer satisfaction campaign, then you'll see the date here that was generated until the end of May. Okay, so then if I save now and return back to my original screen, let's generate a preview for one of the bulletin types. So the actual preview here uses the publishing engine that's actually used by the TechDoc front end. So this should be a realistic representation of what the dealers will actually see in the network. So this is one that's been generated for Toyota. We can go back and look at this, the equivalent one for Lexus. Yeah, so you'll see between these two bulletins, all of the text is the same basically, but we've just conditionalized some of the text so that instead of saying Lexus, it now says Toyota. Here we've got the vehicles that will be involved in the Toyota field action. Here we've got the vehicles that will be involved in the Lexus field action. Okay, so the actual author, before we implemented this system, they would have to create those files or duplicate the content and create those files separately. With the new bulletin system, which is based on XML and DITA, then we can have a single source file and publish that to two different bulletin types. Yeah, one for Toyota, one for Lexus. Okay, so I'm going to show you the other. Well, I can submit that, and then I'm just going to show you the other bulletin type. I must have to put a model. Let me show you the bulletin type because I didn't put the models. So the TSB bulletin type. So this is a bit more complicated than the campaign. So let me type in a subject such as air conditioning. Oh yeah. So let's say it's just for Toyota. Okay, this is going to be whatever, maybe body electrical. Okay, so this is the step I didn't do in the previous example. So this is where, again, we've got the data here that's synchronized from the data hub. So I can actually select the models that are concerned. So let's say Auris, Corolla, I don't know, whatever. I can select the model codes, the engine codes, and possibly transmission codes, but maybe that's not applicable. I can decide which group actually needs to review and approve this bulletin. So let's say this is the engine group. So again, I'll leave it as all markets. And then let's start this workflow. Okay, so now I've got two bulletins, the original one and then the new one that I've just created. Okay, the technical service bulletin, that's a service bulletin that really does contain all of the instructions, the repair or maintenance procedure that needs to be carried out on the vehicle. So this TSB bulletin, the workflow is a bit more complex than the campaign one. So the main steps are basically the same. So we've got an authoring step, we've got review step, and then we've got the approval step. We've also got the CAL files review step if you need, or if the author needs to upload any software files. We've also got this TMC approval step in parallel. So once the author has finished authoring, then you'll see in a few minutes it goes for review, internal review, but it also goes for a review at Toyota Motor Corporation in Japan. So I'll open this TSB in the authoring tool. If we have a look at the outline, within the repair procedure, you might need to use spare parts. Okay, so there's a spare parts section here. Okay, it's not always the case. Some bulletins don't need spare parts. Okay, but if a bulletin does need spare parts, then this is where the author needs to fill out information about those spare parts. And then, okay, if there's any warranty information, then this goes in this section at the end. Okay, I'm not going to author any of the bulletin. You can see here that because I chose the model codes on the initial metadata screen, then automatically those have been added to my bulletin, so I don't need to enter them again. Okay, so I've already got them here in my table, yeah, with the repair procedure. Okay, so I'll go back here. Okay, let's say, yeah, I'm going to put, yeah, please review ASAP. And then I'll show you the different review steps that we've got. Okay, so if we have a look at the process diagram again, okay, you'll see we've moved along from the authoring step, and now we're in the review step. There's also this parallel TMC approval step, and possibly, if we need it, the CAL files review step. Okay, we can see those here in the list of current tasks. So because the bulletin had a parts section and because the bulletin had a warranty section, then we've got these review tasks here, okay, which are conditional based on whether the bulletin has one of those sections or not. So if we have a parts section, then it needs to be reviewed by the parts department. If it has a warranty section, it needs to be reviewed by the warranty department. Okay, we've got the engine transmission review step, okay, which is, that's the group that I selected when I started the workflow, and the TMC approval. So the TMC approval, they actually review a PDF copy of the bulletin, yeah, which is similar to the HTML version that we saw earlier, but obviously in PDF format. Okay, so that I can say, well, for it's them, I need to put a start date, end date, and send for internal approval. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to say is that, yeah, you can view the actual progress of a work through via this diagram. You can see the list of tasks that are actually current or assigned, and then you've also got a history at the bottom here of the tasks that have been already been completed. Yeah, with the person who completed the task, what he decided to do, whether he accepted, rejected, and any comments that he may have put on the task. Okay, and then obviously on my dashboard, I've got an overview of the workflows and the actual tasks that are actually active at that point in time. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you for the demo. If you have any questions, then I can answer them at the end. I'm going to go off stage and hand back to Deepo. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank. I hope you can all still hear me. The demo was so interesting. You actually overrun by a little bit, but Frank was showing us so much. And I actually love the fact that, he inadvertently showed one of the safeguards in place. Frank, in the first TI bulletin, Frank didn't put the model numbers in, and the system prevented him from saving it. But, how to put into place things like that will help your writer, but also help with compliance. So the solution looks really simple, but there's quite a lot of complexity behind it. Let's quickly recap what we've just seen in today's webinar. Remember to put your questions into the chat screen for our moderators to ask questions. We might have to shorten the question and answer session. I see there's maybe a couple on there. Well, this webinar is one of the many that we'll be conducting over the next few months, showcasing good practice to help users and the community at large by using an open CCMS that integrates with their existing environment, taking advantage of business automation workflows and connections between third-party systems and Companize CCMS. TME has been able to streamline and semi-automate the creation of service bulletins using an integration with other systems, as I just mentioned, process-driven work, dynamic forms, pulling data from third-party systems, guided workflows, and template-based authoring. So you're guiding your non-technical writer through an authoring process that has been designed especially for you. This project is perfectly aligned with Companize's vision of digital continuity. We believe that technical information should flow across functions and systems without excluding or alienating other actors in the process. Content should be able to be easily enriched manually or automatically. This can be by putting into place processes and procedures that are simple and easy for everyone to follow, but also implementing the right tools and the interconnectivity between them to ease the manual labor involved in managing said content. Documentation should be made available at the right place, at the right time, and in the right format. This is where you're able to satisfy your users, reduce service center costs, and improve your customer retention. We have other use cases on our website, so feel free to go on to our website, look for our case studies and other client examples that we've got on there, and you can read on our blogs as well. Let's move on to the question and answer sessions. And while we're in the question and answer session, I'm also going to put a little pop-up for you to be able to easily go and request a demo of Companize, request a demo of the system if you feel like it's something that might be for you. So I'll let Jean-Luc come up on stage, and we can maybe take a look through the possible questions we've got on there. I've got to take a look through and see what's been asked.
Yes,
Jean-Luc?
hello everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So I have a few questions and maybe one question for Gary. If you can hear me, Gary. The question is, how do you translate the bulletins?
Okay, Gary, you can come up on stage. I'm going to invite you up on stage. You can just pop in, and it'd be great to see you again. Okay, you're still on mute.
Hi, I think you can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so
You want to hear the question again?
is about the language translation, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got some translation tools that we use. That are, basically, it's another supplier that's providing some services around translation, and they're used basically to do the translation into the various languages that we use. So it's a service provided solution.
Okay. So when the content is validated, it goes to another system for being translated?
Indeed, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I have a few other questions. Maybe one for Frank. Can we pull data from a PLM and use them in the forms as
Thanks, Gary.
variables?
Okay.
Frank,
do I come on stage? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, you're on stage now.
Yeah. So that's one of the advantages of our solution, our platform, is that it's very open. I don't know if we said, but we use an enterprise content management platform, sort of that's called Alfresco as the central sort of repository, and we have a lot of APIs that we can use to integrate with external systems, which is what we've used at Toyota for integrating with the product data hub, to pull all of the model code data. With the system that centralizes all of the CAL file software for the software that's uploaded into the vehicles. At other customers, we've done similar integrations. Yeah, so that's one of the advantages of having a sort of an open platform, is that you can integrate it more easily with third-party systems such as PLMs.
Okay, thank you. I have other questions, maybe for Gary, actually. One is about the number of users, how many authors, and the other one is, are the authors trained to use the system?
Yeah, there's multiple authors actually. So we have different. It's like we said before. It's not, you don't need to be an IT expert. These are engineers that are using the system. So there are multiple users, authors in the various divisions of Toyota. So there are tens of users, let's say, that are using the system, and they're given some training at the start. But basically, I think with the tool, it's fairly self-explanatory, and they can pick that up fairly quickly. There's not really any formal training necessary. It's more or less hands-on learning. Yeah.
Intuitive.
Okay, thank you. And another question maybe for Frank, is the content data XML, and can we use other XML?
Yes, it is DITA XML. I don't know who asked that question, but I don't know if I said DITA. Yeah, it is DITA XML. Having said that, I'm not sure that the authors actually know that they're using DITA XML. Did you know, Gary, that you were using DITA XML?
I did, but I think our users don't.
But
they
yeah, having
don't
said that,
refer
that's
to it
just
like
the
that, but
format that we
yeah.
use, which is one of the
It's,
standards. But in theory, yeah,
more of a
you
technical.
can use any type of structured markup, yeah, XML or even HTML.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all for the questions. So if you have other questions, or if Dipo, you want to conclude.
Well, we're sort of like, overrun by 5 minutes. So like, if there's anyone out there in the audience, feel free to like, drop us a line. I've put up a request a demo link on there. You can also use that to contact us. So like, just click on there and like fill in the form. If you'd like, just to have a chat, you don't have to request a demo. Thanks very much, Gary. That was like, exciting, really great to see. Thanks, Frank. I was so engrossed in the demo, I didn't want to stop you. And Jean-Luc, thanks for asking questions, helping to moderate in the background there. And I hope to see you all soon at our next webinar. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.